Hello there, and welcome to today's episode. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, your mind racing with thoughts about unpaid bills, mounting debt, or uncertain financial futures? That knot in your stomach when you check your bank account, or the wave of anxiety that hits when unexpected expenses arise? You're not alone. In a world where money touches virtually every aspect of our lives, financial stress has become an invisible epidemic affecting millions worldwide, silently eroding our mental well-being day by day. I'm Dr. Olivia Bennett, and today we're diving deep into the complex relationship between your wallet and your well-being, how financial stress impacts mental health, and most importantly, what you can do about it. Whether you're struggling with crushing debt, living paycheck to paycheck, or simply feeling anxious about your financial future, this episode offers insights, strategies, and hope for breaking free from money-related mental health challenges. Financial stress isn't just about money. It's about how money problems infiltrate our thoughts, emotions, relationships, and even our physical health. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the psychological mechanisms at play when financial worries take hold, recognize the warning signs in yourself and loved ones, and have practical, evidence-based strategies to protect your mental health while addressing your financial challenges. So take a deep breath, find a comfortable spot, and join me on this journey to understand and overcome one of modern life's most pervasive stressors. Your financial situation might not change overnight, but though you respond to it mentally and emotionally can begin shifting today. Let's start by understanding exactly what we mean by financial stress and why it has such a profound impact on our mental health. Financial stress is more than just worrying about money. It's a persistent state of concern, anxiety, and fear related to one's financial situation. This could stem from insufficient income, overwhelming debt, unexpected expenses, job insecurity, or even the pressure to maintain a certain lifestyle. What makes financial stress particularly insidious is its pervasive nature. Unlike many other stressors that come and go, financial concerns can permeate every aspect of our lives. Think about it, from the moment we wake up to when we go to sleep, financial decisions and pressures follow us. Should I buy coffee this morning? Can I afford to go out with friends this weekend? What happens if my car breaks down? Am I saving enough for retirement? Is my job secure? These questions continuously circulate in our minds, creating a background hum of anxiety that never fully dissipates. The human brain is wired to perceive financial insecurity as a genuine threat to survival. In evolutionary terms, lacking resources meant potential starvation or vulnerability to predators. Today, while the threats are different, our neurological response remains similar. When we face financial difficulties, our brain activates the same stress response that would kick in if we were facing physical danger. This triggers a cascade of stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline, preparing us for fight or flight. Short-term financial stress, like an unexpected bill or temporary cash flow problem, might actually enhance problem-solving abilities as these stress hormones sharpen focus and increase energy. However, when financial stress becomes chronic, lasting weeks, months, or even years, these same biological responses become deeply harmful. Persistent elevation of stress hormones leads to inflammation, weakened immune function, digestive problems, and changes in brain structure and function. Research has consistently shown that ongoing financial stress contributes to anxiety disorders, depression, sleep disturbances, substance abuse, and even suicidal thoughts. A landmark study published in the Journal of Health and Social Behavior found that individuals with high debt-to-asset ratios were 3 times more likely to experience symptoms of depression than those with lower ratios. Another study from the American Psychological Association reported that money is the leading cause of stress for Americans, ranking above work, health concerns, and family responsibilities. What makes financial stress particularly challenging is the shame and stigma often attached to it. While people might openly discuss stress related to work deadlines or family conflicts, financial difficulties remain largely hidden. Many people suffer in silence, believing their financial problems reflect personnel failure or inadequacy, rather than recognizing the systemic factors and unpredictable life circumstances that often contribute to financial hardship. This silence and isolation only amplify the psychological impact. Human beings are social creatures who thrive on connection and community support during difficult times. When we feel we must hide our financial struggles, we cut ourselves off from potential sources of emotional support, practical advice, and shared problem solving. Financial stress doesn't just affect individual psychology, it ripples through relationships as well. Money consistently ranks among the top reasons for conflict in romantic relationships and marriages. Financial strain can transform loving partnerships into battlegrounds of blame, resentment, and distrust. Parents experiencing financial stress may become emotionally unavailable to their children or transfer their money anxieties to the next generation. The relationship between financial stress and mental health often becomes cyclical and self-reinforcing. Financial problems trigger psychological distress, which then impairs decision-making, reduces productivity, and may lead to costly coping behaviors like emotional spending or substance use. These outcomes frequently worsen the original financial situation, creating a downward spiral that becomes increasingly difficult to escape. It's important to recognize that financial stress affects different demographic groups in distinctive ways. For example, research indicates that women often experience higher levels of financial anxiety than men, even at similar income levels. This may relate to historical wage gaps, career interruptions for caregiving, longer average lifespans requiring more retirement savings, and societal messaging about women and money. Similarly, racial and ethnic minorities frequently face unique financial stressors related to systemic disadvantages, including discrimination in employment and lending, limited access to financial education, and intergenerational wealth gaps. These additional layers of financial stress compound the mental health impact for these communities. Young adults today face unprecedented financial pressures, including crushing student loan debt, skyrocketing housing costs, and increasingly unstable employment in the gig economy. These challenges have contributed to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and delayed life milestones among millennials and Gen Z compared to previous generations at the same age. Older adults approaching retirement often experience a different kind of financial stress-related concerns about outliving their savings, healthcare costs, and potential dependency on family members. This age-specific financial anxiety can manifest as sleep disturbances, excessive worrying, and even physical symptoms like headaches or digestive problems. Understanding the profound connection between financial circumstances and mental health helps us recognize that money troubles aren't just practical problems, they're psychological and emotional challenges as well. Addressing financial stress effectively requires attention to both the financial reality and its mental health impact. Before we dive into strategies for managing financial stress, I want to emphasize that experiencing anxiety, sadness, or frustration about money difficulties is completely normal. These emotions don't represent weakness or failure. They're natural responses to genuine challenges. Acknowledging these feelings without judgment is actually the first step toward healthier financial and emotional well-being. Now, let's explore how financial stress specifically affects different aspects of mental health, starting with anxiety and depression. Anxiety is perhaps the most common psychological response to financial pressure. Financial anxiety can manifest as persistent worry, racing thoughts, difficulty concentrating, irritability, muscle tension, and sleep disturbances. Some people experience panic attacks triggered by financial events like checking bank accounts, opening bills, or discussing money matters. The uncertainty inherent in financial stress is particularly triggering for anxiety. Our brains crave predictability and control, both of which can feel absent during financial difficulties. The inability to plan confidently for the future creates a state of perpetual alertness and worry as the brain continually scans for potential threats and problems. For many, financial anxiety becomes anticipatory, worrying not just about current problems but projecting fear into the future. This future-oriented anxiety can become overwhelming, with catastrophic thinking patterns like, if I lose my job, I'll never find another one, I'll lose my home, and end up homeless. These thought spirals make it difficult to take practical action in the present moment. Depression is another common response to ongoing financial stress. The persistent strain of financial difficulties can deplete psychological resources, leading to feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, and helplessness. Financial problems often trigger a sense of failure and shame, particularly in cultures that equate financial success with personal value and identity. People experiencing financial-related depression may withdraw from social activities, both to avoid spending money and due to feelings of embarrassment about their situation. This isolation further deepens depression, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. Many also experience anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure, as financial worries overshadow previously enjoyable experiences. Sleep disturbances represent another significant mental health impact of financial stress. The racing thoughts and worries that accompany money problems often intensify during nighttime hours when external distractions are minimal. Many people report lying awake calculating bills, planning budget adjustments, or catastrophizing about financial futures. This sleep disruption creates a vicious cycle. Poor sleep impairs cognitive function, emotional regulation, and physical health, making it harder to cope with financial challenges or perform well at work. Chronic sleep deprivation also increases vulnerability to anxiety and depression, further compounding mental health difficulties. Another concerning aspect of financial stress is its link to substance use and addiction. Some individuals turn to alcohol, drugs, gambling, or other potentially addictive behaviors to temporarily escape financial worries or numb emotional pain. While these substances or behaviors may provide short-term relief, they ultimately create additional problems, both financial and psychological. Research shows that financial stress is associated with increased alcohol consumption, with one study finding that individuals experiencing severe financial strain were nearly twice as likely to engage in heavy drinking compared to those with financial stability. Similarly, gambling problems often intensify during periods of financial desperation as individuals chase the false hope of a quick solution to money troubles. Financial stress can also trigger or exacerbate eating disorders. Some people respond to financial pressure by severely restricting food intake as a means of controlling expenses, while others may engage in emotional eating or binge eating to cope with financial anxiety. Both responses reflect attempts to regain a sense of control when finances feel unmanageable. Relationship strain represents one of the most painful consequences of financial stress. Money conflicts are consistently cited as a leading cause of divorce and relationship breakdown. Financial stress can transform loving relationships into battlegrounds of blame, criticism, and defensiveness. Partners may develop different coping mechanisms for financial stress. One might become hypervigilant about spending while another engages in avoidance or even secret financial behavior. These differences can erode trust and create a sense of emotional distance. Children in financially stressed households often absorb the tension, potentially developing their own anxiety about money or feeling responsible for family financial problems. Financial stress doesn't just affect mental health, it impacts physical well-being as well, creating a mind-body connection that's important to understand. Chronic stress, regardless of its source, triggers inflammation in the body, weakens immune function, and increases vulnerability to various health conditions, including cardiovascular disease, digestive disorders, and autoimmune conditions. People under financial strain often neglect preventive health care due to cost concerns, postpone needed medical treatment, or fail to fill prescriptions. They may also adopt unhealthy coping mechanisms like poor eating habits, reduced physical activity, or increased substance use. These behaviors further compromise physical health, creating additional expenses and stress, another self-reinforcing cycle. For some individuals, financial stress manifests primarily through physical symptoms: headaches, back pain, digestive issues, skin problems, or general fatigue. These somatic symptoms are genuine physical experiences triggered by psychological distress. Unfortunately, pursuing medical treatment for these symptoms without addressing the underlying financial stress often leads to frustration, additional expenses, and limited improvement. Now that we understand the profound mental health impacts of financial stress, let's examine specific risk factors that make certain individuals more vulnerable. By identifying these risk factors, we can better target preventive strategies and support. One significant risk factor is having a low or unstable income that barely covers or falls short of basic needs. Living in a constant state of scarcity creates what researchers call a bandwidth tax. The cognitive and emotional burden of perpetually making difficult financial decisions depletes mental resources needed for problem solving, planning, and emotional regulation. High debt levels, particularly unsecured consumer debt like credit cards or payday loans, strongly correlate with psychological distress. The combination of high interest rates, mounting balances, and collection pressures creates a particularly toxic form of financial stress that can seem inescapable. Lack of financial literacy constitutes another risk factor. Without understanding basic financial principles or how to effectively manage money, individuals are more vulnerable to poor financial decisions and predatory financial practices, increasing the likelihood of financial distress. Childhood experiences significantly shape adult financial behavior and stress responses. Growing up in a household with financial instability or where money was a source of conflict often creates deeply ingrained patterns of financial anxiety that persist regardless of adult financial circumstances. Sudden financial shocks, job loss, major medical expenses, divorce, natural disasters, or business failure can trigger acute financial stress even for previously stable individuals. These unexpected events often deplete financial reserves and challenge one's sense of security and identity. Systemic factors also play a crucial role in financial stress vulnerability. Discrimination in employment, education, housing, and lending creates additional barriers for marginalized communities. Economic recessions, industry disruptions, and rising costs of essentials like housing, healthcare, and education affect financial stability regardless of individual choices. Personality factors and cognitive styles influence how individuals experience and respond to financial challenges. Tendencies toward perfectionism, catastrophic thinking, external locus of control, believing outcomes are determined primarily by external forces rather than personal actions, and difficulty tolerating uncertainty all increase vulnerability to financial-related distress. Having limited social support represents another significant risk factor. Financial difficulties become more psychologically damaging when faced alone, without emotional support, practical assistance, or alternative perspectives from trusted others. Mental health conditions like anxiety disorders, depression, ADHD, or bipolar disorder can complicate financial management and increase vulnerability to financial stress. These conditions may affect decision-making, impulse control, organizational skills, and emotional responses to financial challenges. Now, let's turn our attention to recognizing the warning signs that financial stress is negatively impacting mental health. Identifying these signs early allows for more effective intervention before serious psychological consequences develop. Common psychological warning signs include persistent worry about money that interferes with daily functioning, difficulty concentrating due to financial concerns, feeling overwhelmed or hopeless about financial situations, and experiencing shame or embarrassment about financial status. Behavioral indicators often include avoiding financial tasks like opening mail or checking account balances, making impulsive financial decisions out of desperation, withdrawing from social activities due to financial concerns or embarrassment, using shopping, gambling, or substances to cope with financial stress, and experiencing increasing conflict about money in relationships. Physical warning signs may manifest as sleep problems related to financial worries, changes in appetite or weight, tension, headaches or muscle pain, digestive problems, or worsening of existing health conditions during times of financial strain. If you recognize these warning signs in yourself or someone close to you, it's important to take them seriously. Just as with any health concern, early intervention for financial stress can prevent more severe consequences and create more options for effective management. Let's now explore evidence-based strategies for protecting mental health while navigating financial challenges. These approaches address both the practical financial aspects and the psychological dimensions of financial stress. The first step is developing financial clarity, even when the reality is difficult to face. Many people avoid looking closely at their financial situation because it triggers anxiety. However, this avoidance ultimately increases stress by allowing problems to grow and limiting potential solutions. Begin by creating a complete financial inventory, listing all income sources, expenses, debts, and assets. While this process may temporarily increase anxiety, having accurate information provides a foundation for realistic planning and reduces the cognitive burden of uncertainty. For those feeling overwhelmed by this task, consider breaking it into smaller steps spread over days or weeks. Start with gathering all financial documents, then work gradually through categorizing and calculating. Some people find it helpful to engage a supportive friend, family member, or financial counselor during this process for both practical assistance and emotional support. Once you have financial clarity, the next step is creating a realistic budget that reflects both financial priorities and personal values. Effective budgeting isn't just about restriction, it's about intentional allocation of resources toward what matters most. This might include necessities like housing and food, debt reduction, savings for future stability, and modest allowances for activities that support mental well-being. Many people find the 50-30-20 budget framework helpful as a starting point, allocating roughly 5% of income to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings and debt repayment. However, these percentages may need adjustment based on individual circumstances, regional costs of living, and specific financial goals. For those facing severe financial constraints where income barely covers or falls short of basic needs, traditional budgeting advice may seem impossible to implement. In these situations, focus first on maximizing income through all available means, including examining eligibility for assistance programs, pursuing higher-paying employment opportunities, developing additional income streams, or monetizing existing skills and resources. Next, prioritize expenses based on survival needs, housing, utilities, food, essential medications, and legal obligations such as court-ordered payments. For remaining expenses, consider what can be reduced, eliminated, renegotiated, or postponed. This process often involves difficult choices, but having a systematic approach reduces the psychological burden of constant financial decision-making. For those struggling with debt, developing a strategic repayment plan can significantly reduce financial anxiety by creating a path forward. Two common approaches include the avalanche method, focusing on highest interest debts first to minimize total interest paid, and the snowball method, paying off smaller debts first to build motivation through early wins. Research suggests that while the avalanche method is mathematically optimal, the snowball method often works better psychologically because it provides a sense of progress and accomplishment. Consider exploring debt management options like consolidation loans, balance transfers to lower interest accounts, or negotiating with creditors for reduced interest rates or settlement amounts. For severe debt situations, nonprofit credit counseling agencies offer free or low-cost guidance on debt management options, including potential bankruptcy protection when appropriate. Building emergency savings, even in small amounts, significantly reduces financial anxiety by creating a buffer against unexpected expenses. Research shows that even modest emergency funds, as little as $250-500, can prevent cascading financial crises when unexpected costs arise. For those with limited capacity to save, start with a realistic target like $50 or $100 and celebrate reaching this milestone before setting a new goal. Automating small, regular transfers to savings increases success rates by removing the need for repeated decisions. Some financial apps offer features that round up purchase amounts and transfer the difference to savings, making the process nearly invisible in daily budgeting. Financial education represents another powerful tool for reducing financial stress. Understanding basic financial concepts empowers better decision-making and reduces vulnerability to predatory practices. Numerous free resources exist for building financial literacy, including public library materials, nonprofit organization websites, community workshops, and reputable financial education podcasts. Focus on practical knowledge relevant to your specific financial situation rather than advanced concepts that may not apply. Key areas often include understanding credit, including credit reports and scores, banking basics, consumer rights, employment benefits, tax fundamentals, and insurance essentials. Now, let's address the psychological dimension of managing financial stress. Cognitive reframing techniques help challenge and change unproductive thought patterns that contribute to financial distress. Common unhelpful thought patterns include catastrophizing, "I'll never recover from this financial setback," overgeneralizing, "I always make bad financial decisions," and black and white thinking, I can't afford what others have, I'm a complete failure." To practice cognitive reframing, first identify negative financial thoughts when they arise. Ask yourself, is this thought based entirely on facts or partly on assumptions? Am I overlooking any positive aspects or potential solutions? Would I judge someone else this harshly in a similar situation? Then deliberately replace distorted thoughts with more balanced perspectives that acknowledge difficulties while also recognizing capabilities, resources, and possibilities. Mindfulness practices offer another effective approach for managing financial anxiety. Financial stress often involves rumination about past decisions or worry about future outcomes, both mental habits that disconnect us from the present moment where effective action is possible. Regular mindfulness practice helps break these patterns by training attention to return to the present. Simple mindfulness exercises include focused breathing, concentrating fully on the sensation of breathing for 2 to 5 minutes. Body scanning, systematically noticing physical sensations throughout the body without judgment, and mindful observations, giving complete attention to observing an object or process without analysis. Even brief daily practice can significantly reduce stress reactivity over time. When financial thoughts arise during mindfulness practice, acknowledge them without judgment, then gently return attention to the present focus. Over time, this develops the ability to notice financial concerns without being consumed by them, creating psychological space for more balanced responses. Setting financial boundaries represents another important psychological strategy. This involves clearly defining limits around money matters in relationships, work, and social situations. Examples include deciding not to discuss financial details with certain individuals, establishing limits on financial assistance to family members, declining participation in expensive social activities without apology, and restricting work hours to prevent burnout even when additional income is tempting. Communicating financial boundaries respectfully but firmly protects mental well-being by reducing pressure to make financial decisions based on others' expectations rather than personal values and circumstances. While initially uncomfortable, setting clear boundaries ultimately reduces conflict and resentment in relationships. Cultivating financial self-compassion is perhaps the most fundamental psychological strategy for managing financial stress. Financial difficulties often trigger harsh self-criticism, shame, and social comparison. Countering these responses with self-compassion involves treating oneself with the same kindness and understanding one would offer a good friend facing similar challenges. Practice acknowledging financial difficulties without judgment. This is a really hard situation. Rather than "I'm such a failure," recognize the universal nature of financial struggles. Millions of people face similar challenges for many reasons, including factors beyond individual control. Focus on constructive action rather than punishment, asking, "What would help me move forward?" instead of "How did I deserve this?" Social connection plays a crucial role in managing financial stress. While financial difficulties often trigger isolation due to embarrassment or inability to participate in costly activities, maintaining meaningful social ties provides emotional support, practical assistance, perspective, and a sense of belonging that buffers against psychological distress. Consider cultivating relationships that don't revolve around spending money, walking partners, hobby groups, volunteer connections, or faith communities. Be selective about sharing financial details, choosing trusted individuals who respond with empathy rather than judgment or unsolicited advice. For more structured support, consider financial support groups, in person or online, where participants share challenges and strategies in an understanding environment. Self-care practices are essential during financial stress, though they're often the first activities eliminated when money is tight. However, neglecting well-being ultimately impairs the energy, focus, and resilience needed to address financial challenges. The key is identifying no-cost or low-cost activities that genuinely replenish physical and emotional resources. Physical self-care might include walks in nature, basic stretching routines, preparing simple but nutritious meals, maintaining consistent sleep schedules, or using free exercise videos. Emotional self-care could involve journaling about feelings, creating music playlists that lift mood, practicing gratitude reflection, or setting aside worry time to contain financial rumination to specific periods rather than allowing it to meet all waking hours. Professional support can be invaluable during severe or persistent financial stress. Mental health professionals can provide evidence-based interventions for anxiety, depression, and other psychological consequences of financial difficulties. While therapy may seem like an unaffordable luxury during financial strain, Many accessible options exist, including community mental health centers with sliding scale fees, university training clinics, therapists offering reduced rates, teletherapy options, and support groups. Financial professionals offer another form of essential support. Nonprofit credit counseling agencies provide free or low-cost guidance on debt management, budgeting, and financial planning. Some financial advisors work specifically with lower and middle-income clients, offering services at reduced rates. Financial coaches can provide accountability and strategy without the comprehensive services of traditional financial planners. For navigating specific financial challenges, specialized resources are available. Housing counselors approved by the Department of Housing and Urban Development offer assistance with mortgagee difficulties, foreclosure prevention, and rental issues. Student loan borrowers can access free guidance through student loan advocacy organizations. Healthcare navigators help identify affordable healthcare options and manage medical bills. Let's now examine how financial stress affects different life stages and situations, along with targeted strategies for each context. For young adults establishing financial independence, common stressors include student loan debt, entry-level income constraints, and pressure to achieve financial milestones. Strategies for this life stage include focusing on gradual progress rather than comparing oneself to peers or parents, building credit history thoughtfully, leveraging workplace benefits fully, and developing marketable skills continuously to increase earning potential. Young families often face the financial pressure of childcare costs, housing upgrades, and saving for education while building careers. Effective approaches include prioritizing expenses based on family values rather than external expectations, building community with other families for resource sharing, exploring family-friendly employment benefits like flexible scheduling, and teaching children age-appropriate financial concepts to develop healthy attitudes toward money. Midlife adults frequently experience sandwich generation, financial stress, supporting both children and aging parents while preparing for their own retirement. Strategies include having open conversations with parents about long-term care plans and resources, exploring tax advantages for multi-generational support, setting appropriate financial boundaries with adult children, and protecting retirement savings while helping family members. For older adults in or approaching retirement, financial stress often centers on concerns about outliving savings, healthcare costs, and potential dependency. Effective approaches include exploring phased retirement options that extend income without full-time work, maximizing Social Security benefits through optimal timing, investigating senior-specific community resources and discounts, and considering creative housing arrangements to reduce costs while maintaining independence. Financial stress during major life transitions like divorce, widowhood, career change, or relocation brings unique challenges. These periods often combine financial upheaval with identity shifts and practical adjustments. Strategies include allowing for a transitional period with simplified financial goals, seeking specialized financial guidance relevant to the specific transition, connecting with others who have navigated similar changes, and balancing immediate needs with longer-term financial rebuilding. Financial stress also manifests differently across socioeconomic circumstances. For those experiencing poverty or severe financial hardship, where basic needs are continually at risk, financial stress becomes an all-consuming daily reality rather than a periodic concern. In these situations, traditional financial advice often seems disconnected from reality. More relevant approaches include connecting with community action agencies that provide comprehensive support services, investigating unconventional housing options to reduce the largest expense category, building mutual aid networks for resource sharing, and focusing on strategic use of available assistance programs while working toward increased income or reduced expenses. For middle-income individuals and families experiencing financial fragility, having adequate income but limited savings and high debt, financial stress often centers on vulnerability to disruption and inability to progress toward goals despite seemingly sufficient resources. Effective strategies include ruthlessly eliminating unnecessary fixed expenses that create monthly obligation burden, prioritize emergency fund building before other financial goals, considering geographical locations with better income to cost ratios, and developing additional income streams to accelerate debt reduction. Higher income individuals experiencing financial stress despite substantial resources often face different challenges, including lifestyle inflation, complex financial situations without adequate knowledge to manage them, high-stakes career pressure to maintain income, and social expectations for continuous consumption. Relevant approaches include aligning spending with personal values rather than social comparison, working with financial professionals who emphasize education rather than just management, setting clear boundaries between self-worth and net worth, and creating deliberate lifestyle choices that prioritize well-being over wealth accumulation. Let's now explore how larger social and economic factors contribute to financial stress, moving beyond individual circumstances and strategies. Understanding these systemic influences helps reduce self-blame and identify potential advocacy or community-based solutions. Income inequality has increased dramatically in recent decades, creating structural financial pressure for many households, despite overall economic growth. The widening gap between productivity growth and wage growth means many workers haven't benefited from economic expansion through increased income. Housing costs have risen faster than wages in most areas, consuming an increasingly unsustainable portion of household budgets. Healthcare costs represent another systemic factor driving financial stress. Medical expenses remain the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States, affecting even those with insurance coverage due to high deductibles, coverage limitations, and out-of-network charges. Educational costs have outpaced inflation for decades, making this traditional path to economic advancement increasingly unaffordable without significant debt. The shift from defined benefit retirement plans pensions to defined contribution plans like 401(k) has transferred responsibility for retirement security from employers to individuals, many of whom lack the financial literacy, consistent income, or employer support needed for adequate saving. Employment stability has declined with the growth of contract work, part-time positions, and gig economy jobs that often lack benefits, predictable hours, or long-term security. Financial regulations and consumer protections have fluctuated over time, sometimes leaving individuals vulnerable to predatory lending practices, hidden fees, complex financial products, and aggressive debt collection tactics. Financial education remains inconsistent and often inadequate in school curricula, leaving many adults without fundamental knowledge needed for sound financial decision-making. Recognizing these systemic factors helps reduce inappropriate self-blame for financial challenges that stem partly or largely from structural economic conditions. However, awareness of these larger influences need not foster hopelessness or passivity. Instead, it can inform more strategic personal decisions and potentially inspire community-level responses. Community-based approaches to financial stress reduction include advocacy for policy changes that address structural economic challenges, development of time banks and skill exchanges that create value outside traditional financial systems, formation of lending circles that provide capital access through group trust rather than traditional credit systems, and creation of housing cooperatives that reduce costs through shared ownership. Other community strategies include establishing tool libraries and equipment sharing programs that reduce individual purchase requirements, organizing buying clubs for bulk purchasing at reduced costs, developing community gardens and food sharing initiatives to address food costs, and creating childcare cooperatives to reduce one of the largest expense categories for many families. In workplace contexts, collective approaches might include advocating for financial wellness programs, ACE employee benefits, organizing for wage transparency to address inequities, requesting employer-sponsored financial education with paid participation time, and discussing flexible work arrangements that reduce commuting costs and childcare expenses. Individual engagement with systemic issues might involve supporting organizations working on economic justice initiatives, participating in mutual aid networks that address community needs directly, sharing personal financial knowledge and resources with others when appropriate, and voting for policies that strengthen economic security and consumer protections. As we conclude this exploration of financial stress and mental health, let's summarize key insights and offer a framework for moving forward with both practical action and psychological resilience. Financial stress isn't merely a practical problem. It's a significant mental health challenge that affects millions of people across all demographic groups and income levels. The psychological impact of financial stress can be as harmful as the financial circumstances themselves, creating anxiety, depression, relationship conflict, and even physical health problems. The connection between financial situations and mental health operates bidirectionally. Financial problems trigger psychological distress, which then often impairs financial decision-making and behavior, potentially creating a negative spiral. Breaking this cycle requires addressing both the financial reality and its psychological impact simultaneously. Every financial situation, no matter how challenging, contains some elements within personal control alongside factors that aren't controllable. Identifying this distinction helps direct energy and attention toward constructive action rather than rumination about unchangeable circumstances. Even small actions in areas of personal control can significantly reduce the psychological burden of financial stress by fostering a sense of agency and progress. While each person's financial situation is unique, common principles for reducing financial stress include gaining clarity about the current reality, developing realistic plans based on that reality, taking consistent small actions toward improvement, building knowledge and skills gradually, creating appropriate support systems, and maintaining psychological well-being throughout the process. The journey from financial stress to greater financial and emotional well-being isn't linear. Progress typically includes setbacks, unexpected challenges, and periods of frustration. Approaching this journey with persistence, self-compassion, and willingness to adjust strategies increases resilience and long-term success. Financial wellness extends beyond mathematical calculations of income, expenses, debt, and assets. True financial health includes subjective elements like having a sense of control over financial life, ability to absorb financial shocks, freedom to make choices that allow life enjoyment, and capacity to pursue long-term aspirations. Similarly, mental well-being involves more than just the absence of psychological distress. It encompasses positive states like contentment, purpose, resilience, and meaningful connection, all of which remain possible even during financial challenges when approached with appropriate strategies and support. As you navigate your own relationship with money and its psychological impacts, remember that both financial circumstances and emotional responses can change over time with conscious effort and appropriate support. Small, consistent steps in both domains, practical financial management and psychological well-being, create momentum toward greater overall health and life satisfaction. While financial stress can feel isolating, you're never truly alone in these challenges. Millions of people worldwide struggle with similar concerns, and numerous resources exist to provide both practical guidance and emotional support. Reaching out for appropriate help represents strength and wisdom, not weakness or failure. The skills developed through effectively managing financial stress, including emotional regulation, adaptive thinking, realistic planning, resourcefulness, and resilience, transfer to other life domains. These capabilities become valuable assets that persist even after specific financial challenges resolve. As our time together draws to a close, I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to honestly examine financial stress and its impact on your mental health. Simply by engaging with this information, you've taken an important step toward greater well-being in both domains. Whether you're currently facing acute financial crisis, chronic financial strain, or simply seeking to build greater financial and emotional resilience for the future, I hope the insights and strategies we've explored provide valuable guidance for your journey. Remember that progress often begins with small, consistent actions rather than dramatic transformations. Consider choosing just one or two strategies from our discussion to implement this week. Perhaps a brief daily mindfulness practice to reduce financial rumination, a scheduled time to review your complete financial picture, or reaching out to one trusted person for emotional support around financial concerns. If you found value in today's discussion, I'd be grateful if you'd take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more content on mental health topics, and share your thoughts or questions in the comments section below. Your engagement helps us create more relevant resources and builds a supportive community around these important conversations. Thank you for joining me today on this exploration of financial stress and mental health. Until next time, be kind to yourself as you navigate the complex relationship between your wallet and your well-being.